Hello and welcome everybody to Sonic Talk episode number 483, recording today, Wednesday, the 1st of March. No, is that the Ides or that's just the 1st of March? I don't know. It has some sort of Roman implications, which may actually have... No, it has no relevance to the topic we've got today. I'm totally the wrong period of history. Anyway, welcome. This is the podcast that talks about music technology, music production, software, controllerism, soft synths, plugins, all of that kind of stuff, and everything surrounding it, including the business of working within that said music industry. We want to say thank you very much for you watching. We're streaming live via Sonicstate.com/live, via YouTube Live. Welcome to you all. Welcome to the IRC chat room, which I think we got working as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Also, stay tuned if you're interested in winning a copy of Isotope's Neutron. That is up for grabs a little bit later on. And also, don't forget, subscribe. We're 4K off our 100K subscribers, so I really want to get there. But I'm guessing if you're watching this, you are a subscriber. Unless this is after the fact. Anyway, you know what I mean. We want to get there. Tell your friends and all that sort of thing. Let's get on to our guests. We're going to say hello. We have Mr. Robbie Bronneman right there. We haven't seen him for ages. Oh, yeah. Robbie, how on earth are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Just back from my travels. So,
yeah, you posted a picture of what looked like a sort of a Caribbean paradise. So you've been on a kind of an 80s cruise, right?
Yeah, basically it was like one of those. There seems to be loads of them happening for all sorts of different eras of music, but some company take over a luxury liner and then they just have like 7 well-known artists play one a night, and people come and pay a lot of money to come and sort of have a holiday and hear music in the evening. So yeah, this was an 80s themed one. So I was on there with Berlin and all sorts of other people, and yeah, it was fun. So we did like 2 60-minute gigs at the beginning of the week, and the rest of the time was a holiday.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty much of a dream gig. Of course, unless you had to be anywhere, then you'd have to get off the boat somehow. So where did you?
Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Barbados.
Gee, what a gig! I've got to find myself a gig like that. That sounds awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun.
It was awesome. Yeah, and there were lots of bands there we knew, and so people we hadn't seen for a while. So basically, it was just like a big band love fest. So we all just sort of hung out and just had a laugh, really. So it was nice.
Have you ever been on a cruise before? Is that your first time on one of those sort of things?
Not really. I don't think I would never want to go on a cruise if it wasn't like that. I can imagine what a cruise would normally be like. I imagine it's all the stereotypes of, just very sleepy and rubbish entertainment and all that kind of thing. It's basically like just using the facilities of a cruise ship for something different, really.
I've got an idea. I reckon what they should do with maybe Frankfurt or one of the shows which isn't as big as it used to be, they should just put it on a cruise ship and make a kind of make a music show. Then we'd obviously get press passes, which might mean free travel. So if anyone out there wants to put like a music technology show on a cruise ship, I'm ready for that.
Nice. I think that's a great idea.
Well, next time maybe. And we'll also say hello to Mr. Ty Unwin. How are you, Ty? Ty is here from his studio where he's mastering and making lots of music and film competition, one which was live last night, I believe.
Yeah, 1066 went out last night. Yeah. Coming back to the cruise ship, I worked on a cruise ship.
Did you?
Did you?
Back in the day, straight out of uni, and they were the best 8 months of my life.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
They were. I mean, they were great. Don't get me wrong. I'd never do them again. I mean, you did 8 months, and then you basically had to come home and get back to
do your washing.
Well, the thing is, oh no, God, no, it wasn't. Everything was sorted for you. We got paid a lot of money to do very little, and it was great, but it wasn't real life. It's like a constant holiday, and you think that constant holiday sounds amazing, but believe me, after 8 months of constant holidaying, it's good to get back to real life.
Where's your dad?
Fun.
Where's your dad?
Yeah.
Well,
and also, sorry.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think there must be a bit of a delay on the line, but we want to get back to you a bit more because I'm very interested to talk to you about your recent TV pro. This was a BBC pro, quite a big production, and Ty did the music to it, so as he does. But let's say hello to our other guest, to Mr. Charles Chicky Reeves, music producer, front of house live sound guy, various other things, collector of multiple monitor speakers by the looks of things, and reel-to-reel tape machines.
Yes. I got to say, Robbie, having gone on that cruise, that was the last gig of their front of house guy, and of course he had to choose the cruise. I couldn't go on.
Yeah,
but I had a lot of fun, Robbie. I got to say again.
I was going to say you didn't say it's for Howard's front of house. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, for Howard Jones' front of house. But it was great. I had a great time just staying here, writing research papers,
looking at the photos that you were posting on Facebook. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Thanks for the Instagram feed. It was great. I really loved it. Yeah, it's a lot very enjoyable.
We sent Sean out with a bang, Chicky. So he's happy. He's happy to hand the mantle over now because he's probably got a hangover for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, a top gig. Sounds very much like it. Anyway, let's get on to some stuff. Gosh, I'm not sure which one to do first. Maybe we could start with this one. This is the Colin Bender's 12-hour modular jam, which, as you can imagine, is a kind of... I don't expect you to kind of call in with I remember that bit was really good, because not many of us have time for it. But as we know, Colin Benders from Kytopia in Utrecht has a very musical approach to using this stuff, and he regularly does live streams, and this live stream was different. He just did a 12 hours straight, but at the same time he was running the idea of user interaction, so the users via a web interface could kind of take over the sequences and various aspects of it while he took a break or whatever. And it was just I thought it was a really interesting idea, just generally speaking. Maybe a bit niche for a mass audience, but you could imagine something like this could work somehow. I don't know, Robbie, you've got a lot of synths. Something
you say that. It's a bit of an ironic comment, and when you've got Ty on the show. But anyway, we'll skip over that. I've got a few synths. I've got a few meaningful synths. I'm going to put that extra word in.
Oh, that's fighting talk.
Okay. Anyway, there we go. Yeah, I can see that. That's pretty cool. I mean, I immediately thought, imagine the idea of everyone live with an iPhone app, and then you were running as something live, and people could kind of contribute to sort of a long extended version of a song while you're performing live with electronics.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think, obviously it would need a certain amount of clever programming and not being able to blow it too much. But, certainly for installation gigs like that, I think it could be kind of an interesting interactive concept. And maybe for gear demos as well, it could work, I suppose.
Yeah. I didn't really get a chance to properly look at it. So can you just briefly say how he was managing to do that? Was it like a custom interface?
Yeah, because when you go to the website, which I have here, hold on, let me just bring up the page. I go to the website, and if I click anything, what's going to happen is it's going to start the flow. But there's this little button here that says sequencer, which presumably is live, and then you get a kind of web interface. But I can't see what it is without him actually being live, which is a bit... obviously, you have to just take his word for it that it was a cool idea. And but generally speaking, the thing about Colin Bender's stuff is it is actually very melodic and not just bleepy blop. It's not the sort of... He's a very accomplished musician. His background is he was a kitey man in Holland, which is a big... I think it's kind of like a big band thing. He's a trumpet player, and I think he's made a decent living out of it, touring with a very big band, doing kind of whatever the type of numbers that he does. And this is a very different direction for him. I'm not sure the fans of his previous work will be buying the albums of his latest work, put it that way. It's a very different musical direction, but so it's an interesting idea. I know, Ty, would you when you did the Sonic Talk thing, you turned up with a whole bunch of things, and it was essentially a similar process, except you asked people in advance. How would you have felt if it had been an interactive performance like Mr. Benders just did?
No, people would have just screwed it up. So no. I know what I want to do. So no. Without being facetious, I think it's a great idea. I think from my point of view, what I should kind of do is differentiate between the technical side of things and the musical side of things, and then the end result. I think in terms of the technical side of things, I think it was great. I actually did dip in and out of it when it was actually live.
Ah, okay.
So I think the technical side of things is a great idea. I also think that as a musician, it's obvious that he is exactly as you say. He's a great musician. My only caveat in all of this is that the end result that was coming out for 12 hours or whatever it was, I mean, it didn't kind of personally float my boat at all. And also the fact that, you know, I'm quite down to earth when it comes to these kind of things. And I sit there and go, anyone that thinks that someone wants to sit for 12 hours or 24 hours and watch them mess about, basically, I just think I don't kind of get it. I can't get my head around it, if I'm honest. When I did the Sonicstate thing, I couldn't understand why anyone would want to watch me fart around for 5 minutes. So for 12 hours or 24 hours of it, I think I don't know. I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. But, well, I mean, from a technical point of view, fantastic. But musically, there was, you know, the idea of within there, I'm sure there were some fantastic ideas and some great improvisation and some wonderful bits. But my argument would be, so take those wonderful bits, go and spend a couple of months in the studio and turn them into a proper piece of music, and then I'll listen to them. I don't really want to watch you writing them or messing with them in the first place. That's something that you do privately for me.
Okay, something in privacy. I think that's a fair comment. I know, Charles, I like the idea, I don't know about you, Charles, of turning it all on, improvising for 12 hours, and then possibly having sort of 12 albums that you can then release over the course of, well, maybe the next 12 years. I mean, we're way off that, and it would take a certain amount of skill, but it's an interesting idea, right?
Yeah, I thought it was, you know, I checked, I mean, I received it, or received word of it about 12 hours ago, so I haven't had a chance to watch.
You mean you haven't been watching it all for 12 hours?
For 12 hours straight. I had watched a bit of it, and I liked what I heard. I thought it was quite beautiful. It reminded me a lot of the Alessandro Quattini stuff. I mean, I know it's easy because he does synths, but there was some of the same beautiful aspects in what was happening. But the audience interaction thing I thought was quite brilliant, and also, as we saw with Bodie McBoatface, quite dangerous too, because you know, people could wreak havoc on that sort of thing. But luckily for him, they didn't, and it turned out to be some cool and interesting things. But like Ty said, you know, it'd be nice to take those ideas and go and turn them actually into songs. But I think the reason why it's kind of fun though is because you're checking into a sort of a stream of consciousness, or in this case, multiple consciousnesses. So I like that.
Well, I mean, people have been spending the last 5 days watching a giraffe online who's just about to give birth. And that's become an internet phenomenon. So why shouldn't people watch synths for 12 hours, sort of give birth to a few albums? I don't know.
That's very well said. Yeah, very well said.
I was going to say, you know, people are also willing to tune in and watch a Korean woman smash her face into food. So, you know, it's amazing what will go over on the internet.
Actually, if only we could find a way of making money out of it, then we'd all be millionaires. Yeah. Anyway, you can check this out at colinbenders.com. I don't know when his next... there isn't a schedule here, but I don't know when the next thing's happening, but it's well worth checking out. I think he streams it via YouTube Live, looking at it, because you wouldn't want to have to edit that and then upload it to YouTube. That would be a nightmare. I mean, it would take... well, anyway, a very, 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 very long time. So let's have a look at this then. This is Bitwig Studio 2, out yesterday on the 28th. Obviously, the thing that makes this different is it's really interesting. There's lots and lots of modulators and a kind of synthesis parameters effectively for modulating plugins and synths and automation and that sort of thing. And it seems very much like a kind of synthesis DAW dream, really. If you're into soft synths and you're into that kind of stuff, or presumably just having that kind of modular nature, it's quite an interesting concept and very, very different. I don't know, Charles, have you tried Bitwig? I mean, it's obviously, as we know, many switching DAWs is not a thing to be undertaken lightly, right?
Yeah, I have. I'm mainly Pro Tools because of all the mixing I do, but I've got Pro Tools and Logic and Ableton and Studio One now and Reason and God knows what else I have. Digital Performer. Yeah, so I mean, I have all these, but it is so hard to switch. It almost doesn't matter how cool the feature set is. It's very difficult to switch over. So Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, but it does look cool. Looks great. I just don't know if I'm going to learn another program. So,
but Zero, you mentioned you got Studio One. I'm noticing a lot of people are picking up on Studio One. I mean, is that because you've got clients who are using it, or because it's just a kind of it's an environment that you can pick up quick and you get that kind of aspect to it?
All my clients are pretty much Pro Tools and occasionally Logic.
Right.
It just sort of depends on the level of client, but the reason I went for Studio One is because I like the idea of how you can do these multiple scratch pads and have multiple arrangements of songs and still go back to the original. And I like that idea. And to me, it's like a mixture of Pro Tools and Ableton together. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, the other thing, obviously, about Bitwig is its parity across Windows, Linux, and OS X, which I know I've been on about before, which I think even I've been banging on about for probably years that sort of parity is something that's sort of magical that one might want to achieve. But so far, the Linux part hasn't really kind of made much difference. I don't know if it's ever likely to in your lifetime.
No, not really. And not for me. I'm Mac, and in terms of Bitwig, I mean, it again, exactly like Chicky said, it looks great, but there was a stage where I would have jumped on this because it was another thing to try, but I realized a few years ago that basically I'm a Nuendo man, a Nuendo and Cubase man, and I was using Ableton because that gives you different slants. I was using Live, but then I was also using Logic. I was using kind of touching on Pro Tools, but Logic and Reason and exactly all the rest. And then there was one day when I just thought, oh, this is ridiculous. I kind of, all the programs apart from Nuendo and Cubase, I know kind of okay, but every time anyone that came in that had anything of those kind of files, I just think, oh, this is now a pain. So I just stopped. I literally just stopped. And so now, don't touch Pro Tools. I stopped with all the Logic. I stopped with all the upgrades. I don't use anything now apart from Nuendo and Cubase and Live for kind of more loop stuff. But in terms of DAW, as you say, changing DAW is a huge ordeal if you're going to do it properly. If you want it as a plaything, then fine. But kind of I don't have time to just do playthings when it comes
to know how it would all work. I suppose, yeah.
No, but it looks great. I mean, the whole point with all the modulators and whatever. I mean, it looks a great way. It looks a nice alternative way of looking at things. But yeah, I mean, I've not tried it, and I won't be trying it. And exactly as Chicky said, even if it was absolutely amazing, I wouldn't move over.
Well, that's fair enough. It's great though that there's this amount of choice. I mean, that's the thing that I find now. I mean, there is a lot of choice. And the other thing that I should mention, they did win our kind of best software of NAMM. They got a little rosette for it, and it was partly because they were showing it on one of the Surface Studios, and it was a massive touchscreen, and it looked like it just looked so impressive as part of it, and the fact that you can work, they're integrating that touch stuff directly into the interface. I know there are other DAWs that are as well. I don't know, Robbie, I'm guessing you're the same. You've got your work. You can't really sort of go, I know, I've got a film score to do next week. I'll see if I can use a DAW I don't know in it just for kicks, right?
Yeah, I mean, I use Logic since version 1. Since I've always used that. I've never used Pro Tools in my life. Literally, I've never used it. I had to use it for one demo I did for TC at NAMM once, just to get something together, and I used Live, a bit like Ty says, for audio manipulation, and then throw it back into Logic because that's the platform I know. Having said that, I was very interested in this when it first came out, and did say to myself, I'll wait till kind of the proper next iteration of it, because I do like the idea of, just like I use my Modular as a kind of an audio processing device as opposed to a synth. I quite like the idea of having a dedicated program I can open up, which has just got all the plugins in it that I use creatively, as opposed to the kind of sonic surgery type plugins, all those kind of plugins, and make interesting chains and throw audio backwards and forwards into it, a bit like I do with Ableton. But this looks like it might just be a little bit more fun, and so I might well give it a go just for that reason, really.
I guess from a composition point of view, it might be good. Like in the same way, Chicky, you said, like Studio One for those kind of scratch pad ideas, all in the same document. That makes things easy. I've got Bitwig Studio here. I think the upgrade. Let's have a look by Bitwig. I think it goes for It's $399 US, and you upgrade $169. So I mean, there is a price to this. I mean, they've been going for quite some time. Obviously, they haven't got the same legacy because they're only at version 2 as a lot of the other DAWs. So I mean, I guess it's also quite hard to force your way into being early adopters. I'm guessing maybe people who are into Ableton might see this and kind of it's a transition between a standard non-linear DAW and a kind of clip launcher, because you get both of those things. So it might be something that they would consider.
Sorry, I missed. I was going to just say, pricing wise, because I haven't looked at DAWs for so long because I'm so used to Logic. Is that kind of a standardized kind of price for? Because I mean, I know Logic is like ridiculously cheap. So is Logic kind of ahead of the pack in terms of being offered at such a crazy low price, or are all the others kind of comparatively similar at that kind of 300, 400 euro kind of price?
No, Logic is by far probably the cheapest value proposition, assuming you already have the hardware to run it, I guess.
Okay. Right.
And I mean, I went to Apple Briefing at NAMM, and I saw, some of the stuff that it's now doing and the things they're integrating, they're really interesting. They're really there is stuff going on. It's just a shame that they haven't got it backed up with a brilliant music creation piece of hardware yet. But that's another story. Let's not get into that too much. But it is a good process. I know, Charles, you look like you're about to chip in there.
Yeah.
I saw you stroke your beard. It's a good cue.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but I can't remember which website just put out this article talking about the new features in GarageBand.
Oh yeah,
like it has this new feature where it exports automatically to the trash. It's like
export straight to trash as an option. Yeah, I did see that. That was kind of funny.
It's got like a chord thing that the only chords it doesn't play are C, D, G, and A. It's like, brilliant. So I thought I'd share that.
Yeah, no, I thought that was most amusing. I mean, obviously the reference is that obviously lots of people have GarageBand and it's for noodling. Lots of people will just noodle in it. I mean, obviously there are people who have professional uses for it, and in fact, the latest updates to it make it much more DAW-like, the way you can run these kind of derivatives of audio units from third parties in it and everything. I mean, it's really starting to get super powerful now. And if you have maybe a Mac, an iPad Pro, something like that, you'd be able to get a long way in it before you needed to think about upgrading to something a more fully fledged DAW for sure. Let's see then. I think maybe now is a good time to have a word from our sponsors, and I will now bring it on. This is Isotope's Neutron. If you're a regular watcher to the show, you'll know that they've been offering. This is a competition prize, but it's not just that. It's an automated mixing tool, allows you to analyse the mix in visual ways that you wouldn't necessarily get from your ears or be able to identify from your ears. So you can see frequency conflicts, you can have suggestions on how specific tracks might be a starting point for processing. And as we've heard from various panellists before, it actually works very well as, just set it up and start as a mixing point. It's a very good place to start, but it will also allow you to take existing mixes and identify frequency collisions, as we see here, make assumptions as to what you might want to try on the kick or the bass or the vocal, those sort of things, those sort of sounds. Very much well worth looking at. If you want to check out, go to isotope.com/neutron and you get a full demo, as with all of the Isotope products. Say automatic instrument detection, lots of visual and straightforward controls using their best DSP yet. And the smoke doesn't come out of your computer, which is the gag I use almost every week, but I don't think I used it last week. Anyway, Isotope Neutron, isotope.com/neutron. Do check it out. I want to say thank you to them for sponsoring the show. And also, we have a competition for you. Last week, we asked you to tweet the hashtag BestMixEver and Neutron, and we got a winner, and the winner is a chap called, I guess it's a chap because it's called Darren, Displaced Darren, and he tweets, I want, and then the Best Mix Ever and Neutron, Isotope Inc. and Sonicstate.com. And that is, Twitter handle is at Eddie Rowe. That's EDDYROE. So at Eddie Rowe, Displaced Darren, if you are listening or you have other ways, please get in touch with us and we will put you in touch with iZotope, and you have a full working copy of iZotope Neutron coming your way. In fact, we are doing it again. Let's do it again this week. iZotope are giving away another copy of Neutron. All you have to do is tweet the hashtag. Yeah, it has to be a Twitter thing. It's just easier for us to pick winners, and it makes the whole thing seamless. Tweet the hashtag See Your Mix. That's SEE, as in See Your Mix. And the hashtag Neutron to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. So that's the hashtag See Your Mix, all one word, the hashtag Neutron, NEUTRON, to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. And you'll be entered for the competition. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And thank you to the sponsors. So let's see what's next. Did you see this piece on hooks from Propellerheads? A very nicely put together video from Ryan Harlin. And it's a sort of analytical look at how you make catchy hooks, what hooks are.
We're going to talk about a topic that, in some ways, is a follow-up to the melody writing tutorial we recently did. In other ways, it's not. We're going to attempt to define a set of guidelines for how you can incorporate hooks into your songs and melodies. I can hear some of you already saying, hooks and melodies, those are the same thing, right? Well, not really.
There's lots of examples and lots of ways on how you might try things. It's an interesting video. I mean, in some ways, it's kind of weird that you are scientifically kind of assessing what a hook is and what those sort of things are. But it gives some really good and interesting ideas there. I wonder, you, Ty, because, I mean, you have to compose daily, minutes, hours, lots and lots and lots and lots of music. I mean, sometimes the muse is not with you. I mean, not you personally, but with one, and sometimes it is. I mean, do you find that you have, when you're struggling for something, are there kind of tips and tricks that you could just go, I'll try this and it might get me started, or it might, I know it'll work?
Yeah, every time. You can't, exactly as you say, because the position that, kind of we're in, we have to, you can't wait for the muse to strike. You basically, if I have to write 12 minutes of music today, I have to write 12 minutes of music today. You can't decide I'll just sit and wait for it to come. And so I have two heads. I've said this many times before. So I have two heads. I have autopilot head and I have creative head. And if things are going well and I've got time, then creative head appears and I'm creative. And then if I'm sitting there and it's 4 o'clock in the morning and I've still got however much to write before 9 o'clock in the morning, quite often it'll switch into autopilot head, and autopilot head is essentially doing exactly what this video is talking about, really, because it's applying tricks. I've never ever hidden the fact that if to do what I do, you have to have tricks. You have to have things that are you, the things that your voice. You have to find kind of things to make things work, and that's production tricks, it's melodic tricks, harmonic tricks, and that's what it is. We're just like little musicians magicians that just happen to turn it into music. And so you have to find those tricks, you have to analyze. And so any video like this that essentially takes it all apart and kind of makes you analyze music, for me is fantastic. It's brilliant, because it's something that you don't do every day of the week. You watch this, and once you learn your tricks, you learn about hooks, you learn about melody, you learn about harmony, you then apply it, and you don't have to consciously think about it all the time, only whilst you're learning. Then once you've learned them, you can keep referring back to them without thinking.
No, that's an interesting point about that. I mean, I think the one thing that I found about it is I haven't really thought about it. I do tend to sit there until I find something that sparks me off, and then if I've got to flesh that 1 bar, 2 beat, 4 bars kind of sketch into something, then that's when I would apply those things. I don't know, Charles, are you the same, or do you find that you've got you have more time, or how does it work for you?
No, I go into using tricks a lot. But there's a part later in the video where he talks about doing stuff that's kind of weird, and so what I'll do is I'll actually start out with all the tricks and can be quite formulaic, and then I just start to sort of mangle things until it becomes something that I find very interesting, and that's what I end up going with. But I thought the video was fantastic.
Brilliant job.
That was really great.
Yeah, really great video, and very, very useful in terms of. So that's interesting. So you, as you say, you kind of you take a piece that might be straight to begin with, and then you apply your creative process to it.
That's right. Yeah. I'll do things like sometimes it's running it through something, or even taking stutter at it or beat repeat in Ableton or something like that, and just seeing what happens. And if I like something, I'm always there to just record it, print a bit of that, and then I come back to it. And I also try to get a bit of distance. So I'll work on some piece of music, and then I'll not look at it for like 2 months and just sort of forget that it even exists. And then I'll intentionally come back to it. And it's like I'm now working on somebody else's piece of music, and then I, add on top of that. But yeah, all the 4 steps that were in that video, I'll always apply all 4 of those steps. And I thought it was really good that actually, it's kind of bad that they made a video about it, because
it all seems so so logical and obvious. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and now suddenly it's like once Charlie Kaufman once Robert McKee wrote that book about how to write stories, it's like every director and scriptwriter in Hollywood started making stories upon this type of formula, and they made all these great films, and suddenly there's all this competition. Yeah, so maybe I'm not so happy about this video coming out, because now they explain exactly what tricks I use too. So,
Robbie, how about yourself? I mean, are you much the same? I mean, you come up with the raw material and then modify, or do you use the process to come up with the raw material?
It depends what I'm working on. Film stuff. I just did a film score, and it was mental. We did the whole score in 2 weeks, and it was a crazy amount of music, and we had to work very quickly, and we had to rely on the fact that it's really imperative that you kind of have things kind of stored up, not ideas necessarily, but kind of almost coping mechanisms. So, I have a large library of channel strips, or creative channel strips, musical channel strips, all sorts of things that I can quickly drag in that don't kind of slow you up and end up taking you off kind of piste in terms of what you're trying to achieve. So yeah, I have, like everybody else, a kind of a core set of tricks and strategies for making certain things work, and shoehorning things where they wouldn't necessarily seem apparent if you had to sit and think about how to do it. But when I'm working on productions for albums, it's a bit different, because I like to get right into the minutiae straight away. So once there's an actual song, which I hope that comes pretty much ready as a song, whether it be on a piano or guitar or whatever, or if we write a song together with somebody, it's very nuts and bolts. But I like to get very much into the production of the song as soon as possible, so I can work out how the production is going to facilitate the vocal, which is the most important thing. So yeah, it's a different process, that.
So do you do that because does that then give you a kind of a sound world to occupy in terms of other tracks and other processes that might be applied to similar tracks within the same collection of songs, so you get a sound, I suppose.
Yeah, I like to try and establish what the project's going to be very early on. So, and I like to work on a track and pretty much finish it and move on and work on another one. So I don't just like leaving songs all just like a big group of things all just open-ended. I like to kind of do one thing, focus on it, produce it, mix it, move on, do the next one, bearing in mind what I've done with the first one, and then gradually the project takes shape and all that kind of thing.
It's interesting, that, isn't it? Because, I mean, when I've worked on albums in the past, there's usually a pivotal moment, which not necessarily the first track, but there's a pivotal moment where a sound just sort of, it's like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's the kind of the direction or the kind of general feel or flavour of the album. And I suppose the problem is if that's track 10 in the sequence, then you might have to go back and rework the other ones. But you sort of have to find that thing. I mean, sorry.
I generally find it happens, everyone froze for a minute. I generally find it happens for me within the first 3 songs. I try and choose 3 songs that are kind of a representation of the broad material on the album, because albums usually have like sort of generally like maybe fast stuff, mid-tempo, and perhaps a couple more kind of sort of restful moments that you can kind of bookend an album with or have in the middle or whatever. And I try and do a grouping of tracks first and foremost that kind of represent the overall body of work. And then that way you can kind of work out how to kind of then kind of branch off for the other tracks that kind of have a kind of almost like a natural partner to themselves.
Interesting. Do you find it's the same thing for you, Ty, in terms of scoring for say the series that's just happened, the 1066 thing? Do you work with that a similar kind of approach?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to find you have to find a sound. You have to find something that's going to it's almost like a box to contain it in, and whether that be instrumentation or you limit yourself in terms of harmony or a particular sound, or you try to find the constraints, because constraints I've found over the years, constraints are the things that make the good scores. All the best scores I've ever done, and the best albums that I've done. I mean, the one I'm doing with Midge at the moment is we're finding that the constraining it is actually making it better, because the moment that the world is your oyster and you have no limitations, it just goes on and on and on and on. So for me, I mean, I've said this before, I normally spend, before any project, I spend 2 days developing a template for that score, and that then serves as the template for that series or that album or that whatever. But normally with a TV series, it's 2 days just sorting out a template.
Sort of then creating the workspace, I suppose, if you like, yeah. Yeah,
exactly. It's almost just like kind of the equivalent of getting your desk up and ready with all the effects that you're going to want. From my point of view, it's basically the template in terms of sounds, it's terms of textures and instrumentation that shapes every track. Then.
Well, that's interesting. And do you find? I mean, I'm curious about this because I wanted to talk to you about this, because obviously the 1066 Year to Conquer England. If you're in the UK, Dan Snow is a kind of TV historian, does lots of kind of action-filled dramatisations of historic events, and this is about obviously the events surrounding 1066 and the conquer and invasion of England. And Ty. It aired last night, the first episode, and I was just really I was kind of curious about finding out what that process is. I mean, you get the call, then what happens? Then what happens? Have you got the gig at that point?
Yeah, I mean, this one's a funny one, because this one, I mean, you might remember. I mean, I did this the beginning of last year, basically,
right,
and it kind of sat on the shelf for a bit, mainly to do with BBC Politics, but it sat on the shelf for a bit, and so. The reason this is more interesting, I mean, I've got a few series on at the moment. I mean, I've got 4 series on at the moment. But the reason this one's a bit different is simply the fact that, from a tech point of view, there's a load more synths on it than normal, and it all kind of came about kind of accidentally, because I got the call, and I'm really fortunate. Touch wood, most of the time now, they call me because they want me to do the job. So I got the call, and I spent my couple of days doing my template. And, I had long talks with the director and the producer about where to go with this, because this was a follow-on from a series I did a couple of years before called Armada. And Armada, it was a good score, but I always felt that there was more. We could have made it sound more modern, but we were kind of from the top downwards. We were getting pressured to kind of be more, not conventional, but play the game really, and not get too modern and too arty-farty. And whereas with this one, it was kind of like that, but I just kind of wanted to push my luck really and try and see what I could get away with. Ironically, at exactly the same time as working on an American series, and I'd done some sketches for the American series that were nothing like this, very modern, lots of very distorted synths and lots of beats. And I mean, I shouldn't really say this because every composer will deny that this happens, but this is what a lot of composers do, is that when you get pressure to deliver, a lot of the time you basically have to kind of tread water because you're on other projects, and you either turn around to them and go, I'm really sorry, but I can't send you any more music because I'm on another project, or you go, I can do some rough sketches, blah 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 blah. So I didn't have time to start sending sketches down for 1066, so I sent a few sketches and then a load of other sketches that I'd done for this American series that was completely inappropriate. But I sent them down anyway, almost expecting them to just go, well, why did you send us, well, this isn't right. Why have you suddenly sent us a synth soundtrack about 1066? And ironically, you can guess what I'm going to say, the director started getting very excited about the sketches that were never used for the American series, because they were very distorted synths and lots of sub bass. And he got really excited about it. And that then set the template, because at that point the template that I'd originally set up scrapped, and we went for a completely different set of rules basically. So it's quite a synthy It's quite a synthy soundtrack. Lots of drums. More. I watched a bit of it last night, and there were more drums than I remember. But lots of synths. Some hardware. It started off very hardware driven, but because as the schedule got more and more ridiculous, and we were needing instant recall as the cuts were coming in and changing, it got more. As the series went on, it got more software based in terms of the synthesis.
Just from a practical point of view.
It was the first kind of lot of work that I was working on it. There was a lot of hardware. There was a lot of Moog, a lot of Solaris, and the modal stuff, and it was great. Except when they then came back and changed the cut, and I was having to change to the new pictures, it was just such a pain. I mean, recall obviously anything without a memory is a pain. But there were certain textures and certain patches that I just couldn't get back again. It just couldn't, and I was stuck. And then the moment I was then taking the audio tracks and time shifting them and pitch shifting them to try and make them, it was losing something for me. So I then, towards the last episode, most of the synthesis was done in the box, just from a practical point of view.
Wow, I'm guessing I'm seeing both Robbie and Charles kind of nodding, saying, I mean, this is one of the reasons everybody obviously always says analog is great, it's wonderful, but this is precisely the reason why it's very difficult to use in this kind of scenario, right, Charles?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, whether it's anything that Moog makes or Arturia's previous stuff, I'm looking at it because it's right over there. The Mini Brute, I use that a lot and stuff, but there's no memory on it. So what I do is I take out my iPad and just take pictures of everything, constantly taking pictures. And same thing with my console. My console has no recall on it because it's it's an all valve console. So I just take pictures. Yeah, that's all you can do.
So what you need then is a projector that can project onto the screen, and then you can see where the knob positions. Well, that'd be hey, there's a product.
Ooh, that is a good idea.
Robbie, you've got one of those little portable projectors. You could do recall shots with your portable projector, project it onto the actual unit, and then match all the settings from that. Or are you the same though? I mean, I'm guessing you're probably for films. I'd imagine in the boxes or TV stuff in the box has to be the way to go, right?
Yeah. The whole thing is in the box for me for film stuff. I mean, it's just excruciating if you try and do anything else. I mean, on this last film, it was like they always tell you it's a locked film or whatever. It's all locked. There's going to be no edits, and then you do the music, and they go, "Oh, we've just put a bit of music in," and the music was so good. We just thought, now perhaps we just add in 3 seconds at minute 3 of the film, and then you realise that all your cues. All within the next 10 cues all out, and they go, oh, it's so nice if it could just come in like just like 3 seconds later, like midway through a bar. It makes no musical sense, and if you've done all analog and you've printed it to audio, it's just I'm not going to say what it is, but it's just a nightmare. So it's hard enough as Ty knows and Chicky knows, juggling all that stuff in the box, let alone then having to think about recalling analog stuff, printing it again, recall it, print it again. I mean, I know things like for Stranger Things, I just read in Sound on Sound, they were saying that there were certain devices they set up and they were so integral that they just left them in their modular app, never touched them for the whole time of the production because they were scared that they would get asked to do something with it and they'd never be able to do it again. And they actually did. So, that's the kind of, that's a very brave person who does that.
Well, I started doing that on this with the Boom Stars. I set the Boom Stars up, and they didn't get changed. There were two of the Boom Stars were used for some things that literally I started on it, and then it was quite a long one. I think it was about 4 months or something, and for 4 months they didn't change at all. They were that set for 4 months.
So now we understand why you've got so many synths, Ty. It's not actually...
The only reason I've got so many synths is they only do one sound at a time for months on end. I can't change anything. That's
That's fine, Ty. That's fine, Ty, until Boo comes in and goes, "What does this do, Daddy?" And then that's it. It's all over. It's all over. It's all over.
Stupid. She's been brought up well. She doesn't touch anything. Just going back to what Robbie was saying, because he's absolutely right. And I just finished a series about Locked Picture. Locked Picture, basically, just in case anyone doesn't know, Locked Picture is the stage where they've essentially finished all the visuals, so the film is ready to have the music put on, and they then send you the film, and you write the music to it. So the whole point of it being locked is the fact that they're not going to change the visuals. So everything you write, which I write is frame accurate, will fit perfectly to the final picture. So locked picture is, for anyone that does what we do, is the most important thing. And so when you hear locked picture, it's got to be locked. It's got to be right. And I ended up with, I think it was eight times I was told this is a locked picture. So I'd write to it, and you'd write to it, and then like a few days later, oh yeah, we've done a few changes. And they have no idea the implications of just a few changes here and there can completely destroy a piece, because we've sat there beat matching everything, so all the hits and whatever. So yeah, 8 times on one program I was told it was locked.
Ouch. That is a very painful thing. It's fascinating to hear. Anyway, thank you very much for sharing that, Ty, and for you other guys as well. We've got one more thing to look at, which was this one. This is the new Eventide structural effects.
Hey guys, Tom from Eventide here, and today I'm going to be walking you through Fission, which is the first in our line of structural effects plugins. Structural effects is a term we've coined that...
I'll fast forward it a bit, but basically what this does is separate the fundamental from the transient, and then you can process them separately. And it's a really, there are some... Here's the first example. So this is a horrible sounding snare.
I want to just pull it out, maybe to make the drums sit a little better in the mix.
So it's keeping the transient but losing the fundamental.
I just have a nice, sharp, snappy snare drum with a lot less ring in it, actually.
I mean, that's just one example. There are plenty of other examples, and it's a really interesting... I'm guessing, Robbie, this is something that interests you a lot, because, I mean, I guess it's a real-time thing, and you can do it on all sorts of... it's kind of like an FFT, a frequency analysis, and transient analysis, transient shaper, but on steroids, right?
Yeah, I mean, these sort of plugins are the sort of plugins now. When someone says, I brought out a new compressor, I brought out a new EQ, I'm like, woohoo, I've got about 1 million. It's things like this which you kind of take an idea and do something slightly different. I know that there'll be numerous times on projects within the next few months where I would think, if only I had a tool that did something like that. So those kind of tools, I always lap them up, because even if I don't use them all the time, you can bet your bottom dollar that the one time you do need it is, it's worth having it in your arsenal of things. So I mean, I like the thing it did. It was the opposite way around. I saw the thing they did with the toms, where they tuned the tail of the tom but kept the transient. It's such a great thing, because it's not the same just tuning down a sample, because all the transient goes all flabby and all that kind of thing. So I can see myself using this for all sorts of things, because I like to print a lot of things to audio, and quite often, I might print like a really exotically kind of automated bass thing or whatever, and then I need to drop it into another key, and things like just changing the pitch, or invariably, even if you've got all the tools and the available, all the different versions of like shifting, it doesn't quite do the job. Whereas something like this would do a much better job at that. So yeah, I'm going to get this definitely.
Okay. Charles, I'm guessing for drums, that was actually pretty good. I don't know what you use. I mean, your mixing must involve quite a lot of drum stuff. So this looked like a pretty cool idea, right?
Yeah, it does look really cool. The way it reminds me a little bit of God, I forgot the program. It's Drumatom. Do you remember that? It's this thing. I think it's called Drumatom. I have it, but I can't remember exactly what it's called. And you can run all the different drum mics into it, and it will isolate them from the rest of the kit. So if you have like a lot of hi-hat bleeding into your snare, it makes the snare sound really natural, and there's no hi-hat, and it's not a gate. It does
it's like frequency analysis stuff, right?
Yeah, and it's sort of smart analysis. It reminded me a little bit of that. So I use that sometimes for drums. Like Robbie said, just occasionally. It makes it worthwhile. I I was thinking when I was watching the video about this earlier that I don't know if I'd ever buy this, but thinking about it, I probably would, because I would use it occasionally. I'd probably use it as a sound design tool more than anything. It's sort of like adaptive verb. I don't really use it as a reverb. I use it for sound design. So I could see that would be a positive way to use it.
Yeah, it looks kind of interesting. How about you, Ty? Any thoughts on how you could use it? I'm guessing it's going to have some use, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Chicky, because I think it's good, and I'll definitely buy it, because I think it'll be useful. But I'm with Chicky. I think it's more sound design rather than anything else, because everything I've heard from it so far, this is just a general thing. This is a general subject about these kind of plugins, is the fact that there's a kind of acceptance at the moment that there's a lot of artifacts with this. I've listened closely on my monitors, and when you start listening to these stuff, once it's been processed, the processed stuff it has its artifacts. I'm not saying it's like MP3 artifacts, but you can hear that it's processed. And there's a lot of plugins at the moment that are kind of this ilk, things that are being very clever and are doing fantastic, amazing things, like Melodyne and some of the Synaptic stuff, and and they're great, but you can hear the processing. And I listened to an album, I'm not going to say what the album was, but I listened to an album recently where you could hear all the processing. There's a kind of acceptance at the moment that almost like the processing is a sound. It's a current trendy sound to have. And it's either that or it's just a really bad mix. But and then so I've a bit of, so from a saving the day kind of perspective, maybe from a sound design perspective, I think it does a lot of it has a lot of potential. But yeah, I'll buy it, because I think it's as Robbie and Chicky have both said, there are going to be plenty of times when it will earn its worth, basically.
Yeah, save the day. I just dropped that. That's the screen there. It's available for all the usual formats. I think it's on special offer at the moment for $97, going up to 179. So it might well be worth jumping in there.
One other thing.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, I like plugins like this that are really nice and simple and flat in terms of their look.
Yes.
I just wish more plugins were like this. I just wish they were more like. I just hate it when they're all too complicated and three-dimensional, and I just like them like this, simple. You can just, they're good to look at for long periods of time, and I just think more people should be less adventurous with their interfaces.
Okay.
That's controversial in terms of the
what do they call it? Is it skeuomorphic when it looks like the thing, or is it non-skeuomorphic? Sorry, Chicky.
Yes. I was going to say that I actually am writing quite a bit about skeuomorphics right now. So yeah, that's where they try to make it. Well, one aspect is where they try to make it look like the original thing, sort of like how on your iPhone they have the little phone symbol that looks like an old-fashioned phone. That's also skeuomorphics. But yeah, like all the UA plugins. Those are meant to model classic pieces of gear, so they make the interface like that. Whereas that's different. And I think. I like what Robbie's saying though about these sort of flatter looking plugins, because I think they're almost like two different classes, not a class maybe isn't the right word, but two different groups of plugins. And I like Surfer EQ. You don't expect Surfer EQ to sound like any other classic EQ. It has a thing that it does, and I like the look of that. It's just it looks like code. Basically, like fancy code.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay, well, that's cool.
That's the prime reason that I won't buy a Slate. Like you've got, Ty, the small one. The prime reason I won't buy that is because I just don't want that interface with all like three-dimensional buttons that look like they're off an old, multi-track machine for all the functions and stuff. I just want a flat interface that matches my DAW, so it feels like a part of the DAW. And to me, that's the only thing that stops me buying something like that. I think it does have a big bearing on people's buying of things or their perception of things.
Yeah, I suppose so. It looks like the real thing, or looks like a real thing being the case. I just wanted to drop one more thing in it. This was something that Rich Hilton sent in, actually, which was it's like a thing for the new MacBooks, which is what I've got here, and it's uses the touch bar, so you can create all these custom buttons that have all these custom actions, which is actually pretty cool. Because when we're doing video work, I immediately bought it and thought, I know what, because when I'm doing the video work, we take a card out of the camera at NAM, we put it into the computer, then you have to open the folders, show package contents, because they're these funny little BDMV type containers which you can't open as a file. Open that, then get down to the bottom level, find the footage, then rename. And I created a custom flow today, which is just one button, and I press that and it goes brrr, and opens up all the files in my video folder, selects them all, and then says what do you want them to rename them to, and it's just one button press, whereas it used to take. And I just wanted to bring that up, and that was something that Rich mentioned. It's like $5. I mean, I know there won't be a lot of you with this kind of thing out, but this whole thing, you can customize the buttons and all that, so it's just a really neat little utility. And it's not just for the touch bar, it does macros. I think it's been around for quite a while, and they've only just incorporated that. And that was the one thing that I was noticing when I first saw the touch bar. I thought, as soon as it's opened up to third parties, that's where it's going to get interesting. And there you go. Just wanted to mention that. That's called, what is it actually called? It's called BetterTouchTool. And that's it there. Just want a little top tip there for those of you who are using Macs. The only problem for me is my Mac is up on a little stand and I'm using this keyboard, so I have to reach over it to actually get to the touch bar, so it doesn't kind of work in this environment, but it'll work better if I'm in the field producing video or working on sound or whatever, any of those things. That was it, really. Anybody else got anything they want to add before we close procedure for today? I think we covered pretty much everything. Ty, one thing I wanted to ask you, Ty, quickly. How many cues, roughly, per one of those 1066 episodes?
I think there's about 40 cues per episode.
Whoa.
40.
Oh, wow.
40 pieces.
So, yeah.
If you watch it, there's I think in a 59-minute episode, I think there's probably about 55, 54, 55. It might be more than that. It's somewhere around the 55 minutes of music. So there's not that much without music.
Blimey.
So,
wow, that's a lot of work. Sorry.
Yeah, if you just look at, if even just the opening pre-titles, the first 3 minutes of it, that in itself took forever, just because that had to kind of integrate about 4 pieces of music into one.
Robbie, yeah.
So.
Can I just ask you one thing, Ty? Because this is something that I've started doing a lot, particularly in the documentary films that I've done, is that I mix the cues with I try and get the relative level. I don't work, I get the dialogue to where I think that they're realistically going to put it, and I bring the music down to where I know depressingly that it's probably going to be. And then I mix the music with it down at that level, because quite often if you mix the music at a normal level, when they drop it to the depressingly low level, so many things just disappear. You never hear them. Yeah. So I mix it with some of the things are really out of whack if you listen to it as a normal mix. Is that how you do it?
Yeah. And not only that, there's also, depending on what it is, I mean, I kind of went through a period where I specialised in doing loads of big stuff with loads of sound effects, like volcano stuff and kind of ocean floods and all that kind of thing. And so what I then used to do was I used to get them to send me all the sound design, and then I used to arrange the track, EQ the track around the sound design, so that the track could still, when I did Super Volcano, and there's these places where obviously there's huge eruptions, so I'd sit there and they'd send me the files with all the sound design for the volcanoes, and then I'd do EQ dips in my music track. So if you listen to the music track by itself, and I've done this with the dialogue as well, if you listen to the track by itself, it sounds really weird, because there's a huge hole where if you then put the sound effects in, my music kind of kind of comes around it, and basically means the music can be louder, essentially.
Yeah.
Nifty tricks, all useful, because it must be very depressing. All that work, and then they just turn it down for some voiceover or a kind of massive,
But the thing is, you do get used to it. You do kind of have to. I mean, when I first started out, honestly, I got so annoyed and upset, because as you spend months doing something, and exactly as Robbie said, you'd listen to it and go, I mean, I've got a friend who did a series, and he spent months doing this series, and said when he watched it back, he was almost in tears, because he might just as well have just given them, kind of 2 hours of a hi-hat going for all the worth.
Because that's all you could hear.
All you could hear was I have to go throughout the entire thing. And this was a huge orchestral kind of, lots of synths. So, yeah, you kind of get used to it, though. But exactly as Robbie said, you learn the tricks to try and make your tracks kind of sit around. Sometimes you get it right. Sometimes once it's out of your hands and it's down with the dubbing mixer, sometimes they just get it really wrong. And both ways. I mean, there was a series that went out, I'm not going to say again, a BBC series that went out last year, where I don't care what anyone said, the music was too loud. And I very rarely say that. I very rarely.
Wasn't SSGB, was it?
No.
I only say that because there's a series out at the moment where everybody says they can't hear it because the actors are mumbling, but it may be, I wonder if it's because of the underscore. The underscore's too loud or whatever. Anyway,
sorry, carry on.
But this one was obviously an overscore, not an underscore.
Underscore, yeah. A mid-score. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your recent experiences and all your other input as well. It's very much appreciated. Mr. Charles Chicky Reeves, I guess are you in for another session? Are you working on something at the moment, or have you got something in the pipeline? I'm
doing a lot of writing and research, like doing comparisons between tape simulators and actual tape, and so I'm still working on that, and then a few sessions, and then I go on tour with Robbie.
Excellent. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, Howard Jones, but it's Robbie. So.
Well, thank you very much, Charles. It's a pleasure to have you. Also, we'll say thank you to Mr. Robbie Bronneman, who, we know what you're doing in a little while. So you finished the film score. Has it been signed off, or have you still got tweaks?
Oh, it got signed off last night.
Hooray! Congratulations.
There was like this one provision in the contract where they could come back for minor changes, and they came back and said, could you just bring in this one cue 1 bar later? And I went, yes, we can bring that cue in 1 bar later. So that was like, it was like, I cannot believe this is happening. It was like, yeah, it was one of those. We did, to be fair, we had 2 weeks of backwards and forwards, but it was like, I was thinking I was going to get this long list of things again, but no, it was just one little thing. So all's well that ends well.
Excellent. Well, I am very glad to hear that, Robbie. Glad to hear that. And also, Ty, congratulations on having your episode aired. I mean, this must happen all the time. Do you get to go to the premiere? Whatever that is.
That's right. It's the BBC. They have rap parties, but I very rarely go. But no, I don't even know when it goes out. I only knew about that one. There were another two series. One went out the night before, and one went out on Friday. That I don't even know when they go out. They just go out. So, but it's work. It's work. I'm on to the next one.
On to the next one now.
I've done about 6 series since then. So anyway, next.
Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. If you're wanting some more synth action, we've got the Matrix Brute review, which will be going out very shortly. If you were watching the pre-show, you might have just seen it in full, where I sent it out to preview for everybody to see. But again, just a few tweaks on that, and then it'll be live hopefully this week. So I know a lot of you have been very keen on that. We've also got a lot of other stuff coming up. So I want to say thank you, everybody, for watching. And don't forget, if you want to enter the competition for the Isotope Neutron, I'll just give that a quick flash up there. You tweet the hashtag #SeeYourMix and the hashtag Neutron to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. and that will get you entered to the competition. So the hashtag #SeeYourMix, one word, and the hashtag Neutron to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. Once again, we thank you very much for the show sponsor. We will see you next time. That's it for this week. Bye-bye.